So, Hare Krishna. Today is a special day. Exactly 58 years ago, Srila Prabhupada arrived in America, and therefore we'd like to sing a song with you that he actually wrote tomorrow in 58 days. So he was already in America, but still on the boat. He was traveling in Boston, and he wrote a very nice song about how he felt coming to America alone as a 70-year-old man with nothing but a few books in his baggage. And so he wrote this poem about his feelings, how to spread Krishna consciousness in America. So I'd like to sing each verse. It is in Bengali, that is his mother tongue. And then we can read the translation. And if the time permits, we can then read the whole song in a row. It is first time actually I'm singing this song. I don't know if this song was ever sung in Switzerland. I don't remember. I don't recall it being sung. You know?
Prabhupada was here last time. He sang that song.
Sorry?
Prabhupada disciple.
Yes.
He was here last time, and I think he sang that song.
Oh. Akandadi Prabhu.
No, not Akandadi.
Oh, so nice. So
yes.
Must be maximum the second time. So. Bharo Kripa Kaile Krishna Adhamer Prati. Please repeat. Bharo Kripa Kaile Krishna Adhamer Prati. Laki lagi anile heta Koro ebe gati Gilagi anile heta My dear Lord Krishna, you're so kind upon this useless soul, but I do not know why you have brought me here. Now, you can do whatever you like with me. Alchikitchukarjatava eyanumane Alchikitchukarjatava eyanumane Nahekeno ani bene ugrastane Nahekeno ani bene ugrastane But I guess you have some business here. Otherwise, why would you bring me to this terrible place? Rajastamo gunera sabayachana Rajastamo gunera sabayachana Vasudev Kataruchina hai se prasana Vasudev Kataruchina hai se prasana Most of the population here is covered by the material modes of ignorance and passion. Absorbed in material life, they think themselves very happy and satisfied, and therefore they have no taste for the transcendental message of Vasudev. I do not know how they will be able to understand it. Tabeyadi Tava Kripa Hoya Haituki Tabeyadi Ade Kripa Hoya Haituki Sakali Sambhava Hatumi Sekotuki Savalai Sambhava Hatumi Sekotuki But I know your causeless mercy can make everything possible, because you are the most expert mystic. Ki bhave ujale tara uje sera Ki bhave ujale tara uje sera Eta kripa karo Prabhu Kori nija bhash Eta kripa karo Prabhu Kori nija bhash How will they understand the mellows of devotional service? O Lord, I'm simply praying for your mercy so that I will be able to convince them about your message. Tomara ichaya saba Hoy Maya Bhash Tomara Ichaya Sava Hoy Maya Bhash Tomara Ichaya Nasha Mayar Parash Tomara Ichaya Nasha Mayar Parash. All living entities have become under the control of the illusory energy by your will. And therefore, if you like, by your will, they can also be released from the clutches of illusion. Taba icha hoy adi tadera udha Taba icha hoy adi tadera udha Ujibe nishai tabe Kata se tuman Ujibe nishai tabe Kata se tuman I wish that you may deliver them. Therefore, if you so desire their deliverance, then only will they be able to understand your message. Bhagavate kata se taba avatar Bhagavate kata se taba Nirahaya shunayade kane barbar Nirahaya shunayade kane barbar The words of Srimad Bhagavatam are your incarnation. And if a sober person repeatedly receives it with submissive oral reception, then he will be able to understand your message. So the next 5 verses are actually in a different meter. They are something like Einschub, and they are from Srimad Bhagavatam, because the few books he had in his luggage, Srila Prabhupada, were the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. He translated himself, and this is a very important passage of Srimad Bhagavatam, talking about how people can receive Krishna consciousness. So I'll just chant the next few verses in a line. Those who can, they can also sing along. Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantasto Hyabhadrani Vidhunoti Suritsatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his message, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nashta prayesha bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistike. by regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Tadarajastamo bhava kamalobhadayashchaye Shitaitairanavitam Stitam Sattve Prasidati. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. When the devotee is established in goodness, he becomes completely happy. Evam prasana manoso bhagavad bhakti yogata Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangasya Jayate. Thus established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. Bhidyate hridaya grantis Chidyante sarva samshaya Kshiyante jasya karmani Krishta evatmanishvare. Thus the knot in the heart is pierced, and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive action is terminated when one sees the self as master. Rajastamo hate tabe Paya Benishta Rajastamo Hate Tabe Paya Benishta Ritaera Bhadra Sate Gucci Betaha Hridayera bhadra sate uchivetaha. He will become liberated from the influence of the modes of ignorance and passion, and thus all inauspicious things accumulated in the core of the heart will disappear. Kikore bhujabo kata barose chahe Kikore bhujabo kata barose chahe Kudra ami dinahina Kono shakti nahi Hirudre amini dinahina Kono shakti nahi. How will I make them understand this message of Krishna consciousness? I'm very unfortunate, unqualified, and the most fallen. Therefore, I'm seeking your benediction so that I can convince them, for I am powerless to do so on my own. Atachayane cho Prabhu Kata boli bare Atachayane cho Prabhu Kata boli bare Je tomari cha Prabhu Koro bare Atachayane cho Prabhu Kata Somehow or other, O Lord, you have brought me here to speak about you. Now, my Lord, it is up to you to make me a success or failure, as you like. Akila Jagant Guru Vachane Sayama Akila Jagat Guru Vachane Sayama Alankrita Koriba Kamata Toma Alankrita Koriba Kamata Toma. O spiritual master of all the worlds, I can simply repeat your message. So, if you like, you can make my power of speaking suitable for their understanding. Tava kripa haile mor kata shuddha have Tava kripa haile mor kata shuddha have Shunya sabhara shoka dukae guchibe Dunya sabhara shoka dukae guchibe Only by your causeless mercy will my words become pure. I'm sure that when this transcendental message penetrates their hearts, they will certainly feel engladdened and thus become liberated from all unhappy conditions of life. Aniya chojari Prabhu amare nachate Aniya chojari Prabhu amara nachate Nachao nachao Prabhu Nachao se mate Nachao nachao Prabhu Nachao se mate Kashtera putariyata Nachao se mate Kashtera putariyata Nachao se mate O Lord, I'm just like a puppet in your hands. So, if you have brought me here to dance, then make me dance. Make me dance, O Lord. Make me dance as you like. Bhakti nahi, Veda nahi, Name Kuttaro. Bhakti nahi, Vedanai Name Kundaro Bhakti Vedantana Ebe Sartaka Bhakti Vedantana Ebe Sartaka Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Thank you for so nicely singing. Now there will be Sunday feast lecture.
Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Sunday program here in the Krishna Temple. Willkommen zum Sonntagsfest im Krishna Tempel. Versteht jemand kein Englisch? Everybody understands English? Yeah? Is anyone here for the first time? Welcome. The microphone is quite loud. So, thank you very much for coming. It's always nice to have newcomers. So now we're going to have a lecture, and today we have a special occasion. It's the 17th of September, and it's the 17th of September 1965. Our founder, Srila Prabhupada, he arrived in the US after a long journey on a boat from India, and in the US he started this movement in 1965. So it's exactly 58 years ago, and so we dedicate today's Sunday program to this special day, his arrival in the US, and we have a special guest with us, His Grace Akhanda Prabhu. Akhanda Prabhu is a direct disciple of Srila Prabhupada, so now we have it, who joined the movement in the United Kingdom, and that was in 1973 or 74? Yeah. 75, sorry. And he served there for many, many years, and now he's in Switzerland, and we are very fortunate. He will glorify Srila Prabhupada, and he will speak a little bit about this special day. Please.
Hare Krishna. So just before we start the class, we'll do a little chanting of a song that Srila Prabhupada loved to sing. Jai Radharani. Got drum somewhere? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada's arrival in the US of A, 17th of September 1965 ki jai. Hare Krishna. Yes, as Damodar Prasad said, this is a very special day for us here. Throughout the whole of ISKCON, all over the world, different devotees will be celebrating today and remembering what this special day meant to us. There are so many different aspects of Prabhupada's activities that we can remember throughout the year. Just a few weeks ago we had the celebration for the day that he was born, and that was in 1896. and we have different. We've had different celebrations this year for the 50th anniversary of some of the temples that he helped to establish, or 50 years ago when he came to Switzerland. So we've had all sorts of great days in remembering. But this one is a special one because it comes up every year, 17th of September. Many of the dates that we celebrate in ISKCON, we do according to the lunar calendar. So like Easter, it moves around, because it's based on what the moon's doing at any year. But this one we keep to the Gregorian calendar, 17th of September. So for us, and obviously here in the Krishna consciousness movement, we have a very profound sense of gratitude and appreciation for the founder of our ISKCON movement, Srila Prabhupada. And we believe that what Prabhupada came to offer wasn't meant just for a handful of souls gathered in Krishna temples, but actually it was something, it was part of a mission that he felt that Vedic knowledge needed to be shared throughout the whole globe in a non-sectarian way, without worrying about denominations of I belong to this religion or that religion, without issues of race or caste or class or education. He wanted that to be able to speak to every soul and inspire them that we all have a source. The source of our existence isn't just the material stuff that this world is made of, or even the biological stuff that is more complex and builds up this body. We are more than that. We are the conscious persons. We are consciousness itself. That I observe the world, I observe my body, I observe even the thoughts, emotions, impressions that float in my mind. But ultimately, I am that observer. I am the conscious thing that is observing, that is experiencing, that is doing the actual feeling. Each one of us is not this body, but is the spirit soul, what we call the Atma, present within the body. That thing which not only gives life and energy to the body, but which is the thing which is experiencing within it. So this is a message of our spiritual identity, which goes beyond any other concepts of who we think we are, who we think we belong to in terms of class and community or background or nations, who we think we believe in terms of religion. This goes beyond all of that. And it tries to speak to our very essential nature as a being of consciousness embodied within this human frame. So if there was ever a message that was truly universal, Srila Prabhupada felt that he was an ambassador for that mission. So we will talk about what inspired Srila Prabhupada to come from India, from a place that he loved, a little village called Vrindavan in Uttar Pradesh, a place dedicated to the devotion to Krishna, a place dedicated to spirituality, and to this day still a very wonderful, blissful place to be. And where he lived without anxieties, without worries, and somehow or other, there still was one anxiety burning in him. It wasn't for himself, it wasn't for his own aspirations, but many years previously, he had been given a request by his own spiritual teacher. And that went back to the 1920s when Prabhupada was still a young man. He'd had a good upbringing, raised in a very devotional family. He had studied, and he knew the essence of Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, but at the same time was not necessarily very impressed with all those who were posing as religious teachers and gurus. And one of his friends, Narendranath Malik, said to him, "No, I've got there's this teacher, he's really good, you should come and see him." And Srila Prabhupada was saying, "No, I don't know about this, I think I've seen enough of these sort of gurus, I'm quite happy to give this one a miss." But his friend, no, please, you must come. And Prabhupada's friends in those days, they really looked to him as someone who was a leader, who was, a good thinker, and, his opinion mattered to them. So they kind of insisted, "No, please, you must come." And Srila Prabhupada relented. "Okay, yes, all right, we will go and see this teacher. I'm happy to meet with him." And they met in a little suburb of Calcutta, and the teacher was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, a very, very austere, very scholarly devotee of Krishna, and someone who understood the very broad nature of the Vedic tradition, not in terms of how many people identify it, "Oh, this is part of the Hindu tradition, this is Hinduism." No, he saw that sort of designation came later. The original teaching is meant to be this universal spirituality that we can all join in on. And that's the message that really will help to unite the world and stop them arguing over this and that and all their other troubles. So at this very first meeting, here was Srila Prabhupada, come for the first time to meet this spiritual teacher. And he did ask a question, about how this message of spirituality couldn't go out, from India, which at that time was, of course, within the British Empire and subjugated in that way. And Bhaktisiddhanta said, "No, doesn't matter. Spiritual messages don't wait for politics. They don't wait for change of regimes. They're spiritual. They have their own potency. And it's too important to wait for anything else to change in the world. You've got to give this message out." So he picked on Srila Prabhupada and his friend, who had just come for the first time. Now, I think a couple of you have come for the first time. So if I said this to you, how would you respond? Do you speak any other languages other than your mother tongue? Either of you. Which language?
English and Spanish.
In Spanish, okay. So if I said to you, "All right, I want you to go down to the bottom of Argentina to start preaching. Take your Spanish and go and deliver this message to everyone in Argentina." And where are you going? Where am I sending you?
I take it as it comes.
But what language do you speak other than your mother tongue?
Tamil. German.
German, okay. So we're sending you up to Germany, to say Bavaria, the Munich area, and you can convert everyone there to the spirituality. You kind of think, "Oh, right, yeah. Very interesting place I've come into where they make these sort of demands immediately." And you may not take it too seriously. But Srila Prabhupada did take it actually very seriously, because his spiritual master said to him, you're educated young men. You should take this message and preach it in the English language. So that stayed with him. Prabhupada was not alone amongst all the other disciples, and there were so many disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta. He was not alone in getting that message. Every one of his disciples received the same message, to go out and bring this message to others. But somehow or other, Srila Prabhupada just kept that in his heart, that this was the specific instruction he had received. It wasn't an ordinary thing. It was something coming from above. It was something that he was meant to do. And he was guided in other instructions that he received from Bhaktisiddhanta. And although Bhaktisiddhanta at that time was very interested in some of his disciples perhaps going to London, Srila Prabhupada thought America. Because when it got to the 1950s and 60s, America really was the leader of the world. It was the leading nation, civilization, you know, culturally, in all ways. And he understood that you don't go empty-handed when you want to go out and give message. You need publications. So he spent many years translating the texts of the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and making them clear for anyone to understand without any previous awareness of these texts, of the culture, of the Vedic tradition. He wanted that these books be absolutely clear in themselves, because that's how they're written. The Bhagavad Gita is amazing. You know, anyone can look at it, read its text and think, that's speaking to me. It is not culturally specific. It is not part of one tradition. It is just universal spiritual knowledge that speaks to the self. And Srimad Bhagavatam takes that message on to the next stages and shows us how to integrate that understanding of ourself as a spiritual being with our eternal relationship with the Absolute, who is also a personal, conscious being. And therefore there is the possibility of having a close interconnection and relationship. And it's a relationship not based on simply just praying for and asking for stuff, but it's a relationship based on development of a pure, loving emotion. Something that we know is valuable. I think every human being appreciates that this sense of love and feeling of love and being loved is perhaps the most valuable thing that any of us can have in our lives. And that opportunity to connect our own hearts with the heart of God, that is what the Gita and the Bhagavatam and this message of Krishna consciousness is all about. And that's what Srila Prabhupada wanted to bring to America. So Prabhupada tried to gain some support for his trip to America from some of his friends, some of his godbrothers, some of the many people he had met. And frankly, they weren't particularly interested. Or if they were appreciative of what he was trying to do, they just thought, he is getting on. He's too old now, late 60s, you know. And what will he achieve in America? Will he even survive? Could this be the death of him? But fortunately, one pious lady, Sumati Moraji, who ran a steamship company called Scindia, was willing to offer him the one passenger cabin on this cargo ship that was going between India and America. So he got a chance to go on this ship with a particular captain called Captain Pandya. Captain Pandya was chosen because, and this ship was chosen, the Jaladuta was chosen because Captain Pandya would have some understanding of the needs of an elderly, at that time, what we call a sadhu, someone who had come to the renounced stage of life and who was wholly dedicated to spirituality. So they welcomed the Prabhupada, who was then known as Bhaktivedanta Swami, onto the boat and looked after him. And as it's a long journey, 35 days at sea, and when the boat entered, went round from Calcutta, round the bottom of India and up through the Indian Ocean, got to the Red Sea, the sea was very rough and there were storms. And Srila Prabhupada suffered 2 heart attacks during that period and wasn't sure that he would survive. But he claims, he says, I had a vision of Krishna pulling the boat and knew that it would be all right. And then when they came through the Mediterranean and then up through the Atlantic, the captain said, we've never seen the Atlantic look so placid. It didn't show its usual face to us during this journey. And Captain Pandya's wife was also with him, and she said, yeah, Swamiji, you must come back with us. Because much better passage. But Prabhupada simply took it that was Krishna's kindness, encouraging him for his arrival. But in many ways, all the efforts to get the passage on the boat, even the journey on the boat, these were in many ways not the challenge that he was to face. The real challenge would happen when he arrived in America, and Prabhupada was aware of that. And that song that you have just been singing together, you know, that poem that Srila Prabhupada crafted, you know, when he arrived in Boston, indicates what was in his mind. Okay, now I'm here. What will happen? There's a wonderful story that even as the boat, the Jaladuta, it had come to Boston, it anchored up. And then it had to move onto the quay, onto Commonwealth Pier, so that they could disembark. And as it was coming in, it passed another ship that was moored there. And there's a tradition among seafarers that when another ship passes you, you dip the ensign, the flag, at the back of the ship. And there was one young merchant navy guy, and he saw this ship passing, the Jaladuta, come all the way from India, so he thought, yes, we pay respects, and he dipped the flag to it. And when he looked across, he could see that's elderly Indian gentleman in saffron robes, just looking at him doing this. And he said, this gentleman just recognized what he'd done in welcoming this boat to America. This young guy, 6 years later, went on to become Srila Prabhupada's disciple, Chayavana Swami, and took up Prabhupada's instruction to him. Now you go to Africa for this preaching work. And Chayavana just remembers, it was just wonderful that I felt that here was this gentleman who had come all this long journey, coming to America for the first time. Maybe just this little mark of respect in welcoming him with the flag, maybe just gave some encouragement to him for all his troubles and for everything he was about to face in trying to start his preaching movement. So in that prayer, Prabhupada is meditating, okay, I'm here, but how will people... and he had taken a walk with the captain that afternoon in Boston. He'd gone out and seen what America was all about. And it wasn't that impressive. Because, you know, there's so many things in India which have got their own problems. But seeing what advanced Western culture was all about was actually more shocking to him. And this was the place where he is trying to bring a very pure spiritual message. How is that going to work? How will his words be suitable? Will Krishna help him? Will Krishna make his words? How will these people understand what I'm trying to say? It may be the perfect message, but maybe I'm not going to be able to express it in a way that will be meaningful, that will touch their hearts, will kind of attract their minds. You know, how will this work? But there's another story of what happened that same time. And this involves a devotee called Ananga Manjari. And she tells that in that month, she was living in September 65. She was also living in Boston. She was just turning 12. She had just moved from one school, starting senior school, and she had chosen to go to a Catholic school because she kind of thought, rather than the standard public school, the Catholic school may have at least more of an interest in God for me. And she was walking just in Boston, you know, in the area there, and with her friend, and her friend was saying, okay, now you're at the top, you know, secondary school, what are you going to do? And she was thinking, what am I going to do? Now her friend probably was thinking, what are you going to do for fun? You know, what are you going to do? How are you going to enjoy yourself? But she was thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then just out of nowhere, she hears this message: search for the absolute truth. And she thinks, yeah, that's actually what I want to do. She was struck by these words, absolute truth, not something that she would have heard or thought of, or, you know, her mind. She just felt, but that's the message, search for the absolute truth. And again, this kind of speaks to the universal situation that we're all in, that as spirit souls, we have this sense that we are not complete. Things aren't just as they're meant to be. I can have all the other things in my life worked out so nicely, but there's something that still bothers me about my existence, about mortality, about who I am, who I'm meant to be. Where does all this come from? Really, where do I belong? These are the spiritual questions that occupy every human being. And it has gone on forever. They're not new. They will not disappear. They will be there for everyone perennially. Modern culture is just good at distracting us from those questions. That's basically what it sets out to do. Distract us. And it's getting better and better at that. Yeah. We don't have the sort of time to contemplate life, existence, the universe, in the way that perhaps many others before us did. They might take time to look up at the sky, to think about questions. They might take time when there's nothing else happening to reflect on their innermost feelings. They might take time and perhaps felt able to discuss with their friends or their family about spiritual topics. You know, now we don't. We say we're living in an era of communication and information, but really it's just overload with stuff that I didn't really need. And it's making my ability to understand truth harder. It's making my ability to have meaningful connections and meaningful talks with others more difficult. Just a world of distraction. But I think what Ananga Manjari was expressing is that somehow or other, when one actually is crying out or has some yearning in the heart to know God, there will be guidance directly. Search for the absolute truth. Because that is the starting words of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Answering the question that is raised in Vedanta, the Tato Brahma Jigyasa. Now you've got this human form of life. It is time to inquire about the source of your existence, Brahman. And the Srimad Bhagavatam answers that. What is the source of our existence? Janma Dyasha Yataha. That from which everything else comes. That's something that everyone can agree with. That the absolute truth must be the source from which everything else comes, on which everything else relies, on which everything else cannot be separated from. That's the absolute truth. And the question is, what is the nature of that absolute truth? Is it just nothing? Is it just something inert? A blob? A bunch of energy? A chunk? A singularity? Whatever. What is it? Or is the absolute that everything must come from the original, conscious, supreme being? That's the message. And since it is more likely that consciousness comes from consciousness, that absolute is likely to be conscious and personal and loving and eager to reach out to us to have a relationship. Just like any parent will reach out for their children. There's a saying that you're only as happy as your unhappiest child. You can't be, as a parent, you can't be happier than that. You can only be as happy as your unhappiest child. Because it doesn't matter how well the others are doing, if there's one that's hurting in their mind or heart, that's what you feel. And Krishna's like that. He's concerned for every individual soul that's in this world and feeling, what am I doing? Why am I not as happy as I would like to be? Why am I having all these issues and difficulties? Why can't I find the pleasure and the satisfaction and the relationships that I really want? Krishna is willing to reach out, and Krishna reaches out through his agents, through his devotees, through those who love him. A few weeks ago, I was with some of the devotees who are fellow direct disciples of Srila Prabhupada. We had a nice little retreat up in the north of England, and sharing some Hare Krishna, Jai Jagannath Subhadra, and we were sharing some kind of remembrances, and one of the ladies was telling the story of early 70s when they had just been on a program with Srila Prabhupada in London, and it was time to go back to the temple. So